I'm going to start a new sequence of videos pertaining to my ongoing therapy, which I was engaged with for 17 hours in the previous months. Now, I'm going to read the assessment which my therapist wrote upon my request, and I'm going to be speaking about that and its failings. I'm going to be concentrating then on one particular paragraph towards the end where my therapist says this: "The last session did end after 30 minutes due to the increasing hostility and verbal insults directed towards me after we continued the conversation about me not assessing whether you were fit for work. I advised that the session no longer felt therapeutic or safe. I confirmed that I would liaise with my MDT colleagues and respond to you with a summary and any further considerations. Now, I've underscored increasing hostility and verbal insults." And then she says she didn't feel safe. Okay, I put here in the margin, absolutely not a true account of my conduct. I've just listened to the 30-minute video, and I'm going to upload that for you to listen to and to write your comments in the comment section as to what you felt my demeanour was. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a letter contesting what my therapist has said. Her reasons were for stopping our session 1 hour early because she didn't want to continue. Now, the conversation is very, very poignant, very interesting, and really quite powerful. And so any of you who are interested in listening to therapy sessions which I have partook in, even if you're not particularly interested in the awakened brave partaking in therapy, someone of my mental construct that enters into therapy to sort out certain issues. Now, there are, I think, about 13 sessions on this channel. You can find them in the playlists. They're all there, and you can make your own mind up about what you listen to and the facility that I was offered. Now, what she wrote here absolutely has to be contested, and I'm going to contest this with the psychiatrist that I'm having a second consultation with in a few days, and I'm going to inform him, which he already knows, that I have the entire therapy session recorded, and that there is no indication at all of me which would lead to her feeling unsafe, and there is no indication of me insulting her as she deemed, and I think any rational, reasonable person would be able to discern that it was in actual fact her who was having problems with her own psychology, and she couldn't deal with my reflection upon what we were doing in a certain capacity, because I pointed out to her even what she thought was supposed to be helpful was causing more issues, which is invariably the case. So I won't say further on that in this video. I'll post that after I've read this to you. Now, this is 4 pages of A4. It will probably take me 5 minutes to read. And so it states here, "Thank you for your patience in awaiting my summary of our work together. I have just returned from some planned leave, which I know we spoke about. I have summarised the sessions and attempted to answer a couple of your concerns that you have shared with colleagues." Now, she is on the back foot, she is on the defence, and so she is writing this for her colleagues. She isn't writing this for me, by the way, because the way in which it's written is all for her protection, because she knows that this potentially is going all the way. And so she starts off from the beginning, whereby she says, which I know we spoke about. So she says, look, I have just returned from some planned leave, which I know we have spoke about. So she's saying, I told you I was going on leave. And then you put a complaint in because I never gave you any written reasons as to why I terminated the session. And I said to the psychiatrist and to the complaints department, I says, I want to know how long after she dismissed me from her services did she continue in work before she left to go on leave? And I'm saying if it was more than 2 or 3 days, then she had ample time to write me a brief letter saying, I'm going away, as you know, I've got an operation, I'm going to be dressing your, request in full when I return, but do bear in mind that I've not forgotten and it will be addressed. It's just that I have an operation pending and I'm going to be away some time. She never did any of that. I want to know from the institution, on what day did she leave? Because if it was after 3 days, then I'm going to hold her accountable for failing in her duty of care. Because it was her attitude that I think was responsible why she didn't write anything to me, and she's only just written it now 3 months after the advent because of the complaints procedure. So you get where this is coming from. She continues, we had an assessment session on the 27th of February 2025 and a follow-up telephone call shortly after, in which we set out the boundaries around your request for video recordings of the sessions, and you signed a contract to acknowledge the appropriate use and storage of those recordings. And by the way, that contract, it's just a piece of paper, and you can print off from the National Health Service website that I am perfectly within my rights to do whatever I want to do with those recordings because it's my property. And so she's inferring that I'm under some sort of jurisdiction, that I can't do this or may not be able to do this, that and the other. No, I am. I'm perfectly at liberty to post them all over social media if I so desire, and it states that in the National Health write-up. We also negotiated 90-minute sessions in accordance with your preference over fortnightly gaps. We discussed your preferences for a Jungian therapist and advised that there were not any Jungian therapists in the service. My understanding is that Dr. So-and-so, the psychiatrist, also discussed the therapy provision being time limited to 20 sessions, focused, and the referral was made with regards to your childhood trauma and your wish for more acceptance and a connection to other people, which was limited by the lack of trust you felt. Okay, all going great so far. Over the course of 30, but of course that there was an omission of the spiritual connotation, which I most certainly explained to the psychiatrist. But the psychiatrist, in his professional capacity, they don't know what to do with spiritual experiences, and so therefore the only thing they can concentrate on, well, what trauma have you had? What human things have you had? What muggle things have you had? What automaton things have you had? And so, oh, trauma, oh, we've got a therapist for that. Anxiety, oh, we've got a therapist for that. Spiritual experiences, quickly moving on. Yes, and so this is what I want to address with them. I want to get down into the deep nitty-gritty as to why they can't deal with this spiritual thing which has been around for as long as human beings have been around. And it's high time that they came up to speed. So, my understanding is that Dr. blah 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 blah. I just read that bit, you know that bit. Over the course of 13 sessions, 17 hours of therapy were utilised, as agreed at the start. The approach used was a mixed attachment of trauma-informed therapies, including eye movement desensitisation and reprocessing, and internal family systems. At the start of therapy, you completed a dissociative experience scale. You were concerned over the nature of the questions and who would read them. For example, whether they would be reported back to any other agency, i.e. the government, in another agency, Department of Work and Pensions, because I thought these questions were potentially designed to trick and to be used against me. And so I reassured you this was for our own information and would be held securely within the National Health on a need-to-know basis. Well, there you go. It may just be the government's need to know. You see? And so the trickery from the beginning to the end, people. You had initially scored all of the items as 0 out of 10, no experiences, and then after further discussion you stated that each answer could have been a 10 out of 10. Now, this was about on what level I feel dissociated. And there's about 20 questions. Do you feel dissociated here? Do you feel dissociated there? And so I'm like, oh, goodness me. I could write an essay on every single one of these questions because my mind just doesn't permit me just go, oh, yes, I feel dissociated there. Or no, I don't feel. No, I told my therapist that it was an automaton questionnaire. I couldn't possibly address that without writing a book about it. That's the nature of my mind and my insight into all this stuff. And so I put 0, 0, 0, 0, and then when I presented it to her, I said, well, it could also be a 10 out of a 10 because it's all perspective of where we're coming from on any given day, any given scenario. And so it's a very, very broad thing. And she says, well, it's just an idea to let us to know because, you know, most people don't really think about things that much. And I said, well, on the premise of that, I could say 10 out of 10. I feel dissociated. If I'm walking out in nature, I'm dissociated from the muggle. I'm dissociated from cities and towns and human beings. I'm in the kingdom of God. But she couldn't grasp that in any shape or form, which you will be able to obviously see from the video, which is coming next. At the start of therapy, you completed the dissociative blah, 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 blah. Okay. The scale looks at the degree of dissociation within the self and scores at either end of the scale. Can be more suggestive or dissociative disorders and strategies, which can often stem from complex childhood events. This can further indicate the usefulness of using parts model approaches within therapy. Now, she's talking about the parts. The part of me thinks this and the part of me thinks that, you know, which is all the rage these days. Throughout the therapy, you commented on how pleased the sessions were. Again, she's saying, listen, you've got nothing to complain about because I've got it in my notes that you was saying how pleased you were. Oh, well, in the early stages, I was giving her some credence. I was, you know, being very affable, of course. I never set to destroy the therapeutic sessions in any shape or form. I went there with an open mind and heart. And I told her that. I said, I know a lot of stuff, by the way. I've had a lot of experience and I've looked introspectively into my traumas 1,000 times, but you know, I'm going to give your therapeutic method the benefit of the doubt, and I did do. And in the end, I told her that well, it's starting to do more harm than good. Some of the goal areas you wanted to focus upon included the hope to tone down your hypervigilance and analytical approach. We agreed it would be helpful to work on the past traumas that took in the experiences of not trusting others. Well, okay. Some psychoeducation around trauma was offered, and the understanding that those experiences in all their sensory form were left unmetabolized, and unprocessed in the mind body. And so targeting them whilst remaining in the present would enable a healing process. Or so she thought. You noticed the conflict that although you felt the need to read most of the day, you also felt that reading was stealing your life, and you spoke about an awareness of clinging to the devil I know. We agreed working towards a middle ground would be helpful. Now, what I said to her originally, if you go back and if you're interested, or if you've watched the previous therapy sessions, I says, look, I'm coming to you because I've had an existential crisis. I've had a spiritual awakening, and nobody knows how to deal with the spiritual awakening. And now I feel like an alien. And I've been a recluse for 17 years, and I'm kind of like, you know, a bit desirous to see if you can offer me anything by any stroke of genius, which would enable me to go back out again within the muggles and not look so scornfully upon them for their ignorant stupidity and hypnotic state. And so of course she didn't like that. Our initial understanding, curiously, around the protectors you identified utilising as internal family systems formulation were of parts seeking solitude, hypervigilance, and others seeking knowledge and holding an analytical and spiritual stance. We understood that these parts were very helpful to you, and you gained a sense of mastery, confidence, control, security, and a sense of safety. The spiritual connection and solitude also diminished the need for emotional or relational connections with others. Regularly, we heard the benefits of these beliefs and practices. Regularly we heard. She's saying basically you were telling me that all the time, and to the point where she says, yeah, that's just storytelling, Aaron. You know, we always end up here, don't we? Your stories. And I'm like, well, isn't that what the therapist and client relationship is about? You tell your life stories. What things have bothered you and have impacted you and are prevalent in your life. No, she didn't want to listen to any of that. She wasn't qualified. She didn't know what I was speaking about, and that's the thing. She was completely out of her depth, and so she held the greatest of resentment, as you'll see from the video and you'll hear from here. Regularly we heard the benefits of these beliefs and practices, and I would remind you that therapy was based on permission to go to the places of trauma, and that we didn't need to work on anything if you were happy with your state of being. These conversations highlighted the quieter moments of sadness, longing and hope, and a hope for some change, particularly around socialising and forming some meaningful relationships with others. You spoke about past childhood events and adult experiences that had led to painful experiences of not feeling able to trust others based on their actions. You noticed the child parts that wanted to constantly cry and were left feeling stuck. You occasionally imprisoned in the need for spiritual ideas and reading, and we spoke about the balance of continuing what was important to you and considering some change. You felt occasionally imprisoned in the need for spiritual ideas. Occasionally, really? It's been my life for the past 17 years. Names you used to capture the above was Centurion, protecting the love, Envoy, that hoped for middle ground between the two, the Destroyer, that held views of I don't care about people relationships. Now, we spoke about the part, and I said, well, there's a protector, a Centurion, which protects me against against human beings, basically. We've all got that to a more or less a degree. And then there was the envoy, the messenger between the higher self and the ego. And then there was the destroyer. And I never mentioned destroyer. I said the saboteur. That's what I said. There is a saboteur that sabotages my relationships. You spoke about feeling like an alien and seeing materialism in others as deep-rooted social problems and societal problems. Whilst recognising your views on society, I suggested that we use the sessions to focus on what we could within you and perhaps your spiritual quest. Identity and interest could be supported or maintained in the community. Now, she never ever mentioned to me, so how are you feeling spiritually, and how has your spiritual awakening impacted your life? Never, never. She's covering her tracks, and so that'll be something else that I'm going to contest. In actual fact, I'm going to underscore it right now. This whole write-up is about her protection. The spiritual parts. Yes. We spoke about childhood trauma being made up of experiences that were abusive or intrusive, and the lack of important experiences that were essential for development, i.e. a mix of experiences that happened that shouldn't have, and experiences you needed that you didn't have, such as safety, unconditional love, and a caregiver who to regulate your emotions and facilitate that emotional connection. Well, of course, that was the death of my mother. I never had a mother to do all those things. And of course, I was estranged from my father as well, because we went into children's homes. So I never had anyone to fulfill that nurturing connection. Therefore, as we noticed the younger child in our processing, you were able to comfort him, visualize him, and connect to him with the knowledge and warmth of your older, wiser self. So we regress, we go back to that child and we go, there, come on mate, let's just forget about all this shit and carry on as normal. And then they seem to think just because you say that, then, oh, well, fucking hell, everything's hunky-dory. You know, my eldest sister never died through neglect, and so that didn't put big questions in the security of my parents. My parents left us locked up in rooms for hours and hours and hours without food or water or the facility to use a toilet, completely freaking neglected. Oh, goodness me, where do I start? Where do I start? In the first session, we started using some eye movement, desensitization, reconsideration to connect to some positive resources and positive imagery and mantras. You described a buzz in your body and feeling peaceful. I told you that when I went into the session. She says, how are you feeling? And I'm like, I'm buzzing. I'm always buzzing. There's like an energy glowing in my body. That's my state of being. I'm vital. I'm connected. I'm electric. We're electric beings, I said, and I realise that more than most because I'm always feeling it. She's now making out that I said that due to what she was imparting in the session. Wrong. It's a lie. It's misleading. We also held the ambivalence of the conflict and heard the concerns and worries of losing access to spirituality if you were to engage in the therapy, which could conflict more feelings of vulnerability. We assured you therapy wouldn't take away what you had already found to be helpful. You noticed some parts that kept you in an ivory tower and would mock the fools, and how enlightened this could feel, as well as destroy the moments of compassion and love. Again, we sought the permission to continue with this way of working whilst hearing some of the internal conflict. You reflected on patterns whereby you'd start to engage with other people and feel free and see others as nice, and then you would start to judge them. We spoke about an internal critical part that would take the good things you noticed away. We considered this part attempting to protect you from being potentially hurt by others by keeping you away. Again, we considered this to be based on the many past experiences that had been very hurtful and were where trust was taken away. This made sense to you, and we appreciated how the parts were trying to protect you. You shared that you felt your dad had also been critical and judgmental when you were younger. I also shared how he was extremely supportive. When I speak about, when I'm speaking with people, my mind lends itself to judging. Well, it's because of the stupid things that they say and their ignorance, not because I feel threatened by them due to my childhood. No. But that's all she knew from her course in university. That's all she knows about life. And she doesn't know anything about her own psychology, because you can see she's absolutely stricken. And you'll listen to her quivering in the voice and her emotions coming up. Goodness me, a therapist about to cry. She was about to cry. And no wonder she wanted to end the session. Because I was getting just a bit too close to her internal trauma that she hadn't addressed, despite of her PhD. The next couple of sessions you spoke about memories of your father and stepmother, and we gained more understanding of the childhood experiences. We connected to the little boy who felt like he'd never been loved, and how he enjoyed being out of school and the confines of the system. You noticed the feelings of independence and an affinity with nature and peace, alongside what was described as very distressing memories with the people in your family. As you saw your younger self, you sent a connection from your older, wiser self in the present to notice all the qualities in that little boy. Memories of a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old came up. We used visualization and identified what that child needed, and you felt comfort in the scene you took to him. We felt gratifying as you noticed we made it through, and had a memory of light. The day you walked away from the children's home, you connected the image with words such as hope and light and living again. You said there's no pain, only joy. You shared that you were happy with what we had done in that session. Yeah, okay, so we went through a few things, and I told her my state of mind, that I'm not stressed about my childhood. I've resolve it all. Shit happens. I've not brought that into the future and projecting it onto everyday life. No, I said to her, look, these childhood things, the death of my mother and the shooting in Africa, are kind of like water off a duck's back as far as I'm concerned. What has thrown me out of sync is my spiritual awakening, because that opened up my consciousness. It put me in a vastly more conscious state of mind, and it changed my whole world. That's the issue that she can't deal with or address. She keeps just going back to the trauma, and all she wanted to do was eye movement desensitization and going there to the young boy within me. In session 8, we first used some eye movement desensitization to process an event in childhood. We returned to this event over the next couple of sessions to work through the processing. At the end of each session, you were able to connect to the boy. Oh, she's saying, oh, you see, this therapy works. This is what we did. You went back to this boy, and then we continue with the next session. I was like, look, she said, do you want to do it? You don't have to do it, Aaron. I can see that, you know, you prefer to tell your stories all the time. I said, look, I'm going to do it. You know, I came here to do it. Do whatever you want. I'm doing whatever you want, okay? So let's do it. And so we did it. And, you know, I went back and I told her the stories of my pain as a child. And you know, then she asked, well, how do you feel? Oh, you got to go, oh, yeah, you know, I feel better for doing that. You know, if I went, don't feel anything, like I told you, the 1,000 times I've done it before, you know. So I exhibited compassion and understanding. I knew what she wanted to hear, so I told her what she wanted to hear. Until in the end, 17 hours in, I was getting kind of like, you know, a bit tired of it all, and I'm like, she hasn't addressed the spiritual issue, which, you know, was one of the main reasons I went there. And she was just dismissing it and telling me that I'm just storytelling, and these stories have got nothing to do, you know, with her role as the therapist. You said you didn't need a container to put any feelings in between sessions and were able to manage between sessions. The next session you spoke about more childhood events, and we continued to process the previous memory. By the end of that session, you had taken the young boy in the scene to a calm place filled with abundance, and let him know it was over. Abundance. When have you ever heard me use that bullshit word? Oh, it was abundant there, and all the problems are over, and now I'm cured. We also resourced and connected to the moments you were proud of with your own daughter and how you were attentive and helpful to her. I told her I was an exceptional father because that's what my daughter's told me. She said she had a blessed childhood. And I made it that way because there's no way was ever I want to project my shit onto her. I made her life an absolute blissful existence. So we noticed and gave thanks to the parts of you we noticed and gave thanks to the parts of you did all that they did to survive, and how much you had tried in life. During the next session, you continued processing and more childhood memories came up. By the end, you thanked all your child parts that you saw as little soldiers, and you said that you felt like all your parts had received the seeds of healing and were brought home to the present. Oh, isn't she basking in her own glory? You know, how she's a wonderful therapist, and how I admitted that, you know, her therapy was so wonderful, and, you know, it was purifying me from the core. She's really on the back foot. She never says things like, unfortunately, I'm not remotely qualified in the spiritual realm, so I couldn't help you there, much to your chagrin. And albeit you were persistent in trying to convey certain, you know, spiritual experiences that you've had, for my feedback, I couldn't give you anything because I don't have any training. And albeit I would profess that I am a fully fledged human being, I haven't had any experience of life outside university and the city I was born in. So unfortunately, Aaron, no, I can't help you, or couldn't help you. But no, she doesn't broach that. In 11 sessions, you began by reflecting on sessions and saying that you were noticing a coming together of parts and energies. The conflict remained around protecting the self by seeing the weaknesses in others, and awareness that judging others also wasn't helpful to what you wanted. I told her that from the very beginning. Nothing to do with anything she did. Absolutely nothing. Oh, goodness me. You noticed an anger, resentment towards others, and the hope to be more accepting of others, and the softening towards self and others. We concluded the sessions by considering the development of learning to be with feelings and tolerate them, as opposed to trying to distance yourself from them. Now, in some of these sessions, you know, I had tears in my eyes as I reflected upon my suffering. And if you have a tearful moment, then after there's a certain feeling of catharsis which takes place, because it's kind of like, you know, you have a propensity to feel that, okay, you've released that tension. But as I said to her, in the beginning, I said, I've cried a river. I've cried 1,000 times about these things, and it never gets any easier. Never. And it's always the same. You go back, you regress yourself, you have a cry, you feel a little bit better momentarily, but nothing's changed. You see, nothing's changed, and that's a bizarre phenomenon. How in actual fact nothing does change. How you can't in actual fact remove that pain. It's not possible. The only thing that removes pain remotely is time. And my mother died fucking 56 years ago. 58 years ago. 58 years ago, people. 58 years ago. During our 12th session, I stated the remaining sessions we had and the gap coming due to my planned leave and planned sessions around that. You were more questioning about the therapy and wanted to talk about the spiritual transitions. Yes, there you go. I said that we could focus on this and was curious about what distress had come from this, or what you would want to process about this, given the sessions we had left. I reminded you that there might be community events or interest groups that would also discuss spirituality more analytically, if that was what you preferred. You spoke about being happy to be a recluse, and I validated that there was no need to pressure or change anything in therapy if you were happy with the life as you were. Now, I went to therapy because I said I've been a recluse for 17 years and I want to see if I can change that. Also, the Department of Work and Pensions have been hassling me for the past 10 years, and it's doubtless that they've stopped now. They've just paused because I've recently been awarded limited work capability, which means that they cannot pressure me to work due to mental issues. But they review that every 2 years, and I said to her they'll be back. So I want to speak to you about it to see if you can give me something magic which just enables me to go back out into the muggle world again. Okay, if I can do that, fine, but I can't see any real way of doing this because I'm a psychoanalyst every single where I go. I'm just so vigilant and I'm observing everything, and I just get carried away with the philosophy, with the metaphysics, with the ontology, with the psychology, and so I couldn't be involved with muggles doing this, that and the other in that dead-brained world. But she couldn't grasp that, and she never included it in here. And so I've got at least an hour and a half with my new appointed psychiatrist on Friday, and I'm going to be speaking about this stuff. We agreed to pick up on this conversation in the next session. We noticed themes such as life not feeling fair and people having different experiences, and that the thought of the ending of therapy might also be present in the session. No, you said that. How do you feel about the therapy ending? Well, I'm like, well, were you going to give me something? Oh, if it just ends now, then, you know, of what consequence? But are you going to give me something to make it all worthwhile? Are you going to write a report for my protection? You know, some criticisms of therapy started to emerge, such as me not being a Jungian therapist. At the end, you stated that you had found the session insightful. Oh yeah, you're always banging on about that. Helpful and interesting, whilst we acknowledged that it had been also felt difficult. Oh, she's projecting, you know. I said to her on one occasion, because I could see her frustration every session. It's also like, yeah, Aaron, we always end up here, don't we? Your storytelling. And I'm like, I'm bewildered by this. And I'm like, you're a therapist. Aren't you supposed to listen to the client's stories? and then work things out with your psychoanalytical mind. But no, she was just trained in two very, very narrow parameters, and that's all she wanted to do. And she was highly strung. She just wanted to start doing this with an intensity she had in her eyes, you know, all to see her newfound therapy. And incidentally, it's only about 10 years old, and you know, it'll soon fade away, and it'll go down in the annals as being another useless pursuit, as always with this stuff. So then she says here, the last session did end 30 minutes after 30 minutes due to the increasing hostility and verbal insults. Whoa, well, I've got you over a barrel there, woman. Directed towards me after we continued the conversation about me not assessing whether you were fit for work. As I mentioned in the video, I said, look, I don't want you to write anything like, oh, Aaron Berry's not fit for work. I want you to write your professional assessment of some reasons why I might find that difficult. Not that Aaron Berry can't work, he must not work, he must, I hear this coming from me to the government, this is authority. No. So she couldn't get her head round. I just wanted her to stipulate what I was expressing to her for the 17 hours, that I find mixing with people very, very compromising. And then I started to infer that, well, nothing had changed in the therapy session because she wasn't grokking me either. And then, of course, she got her back up. Hostility and verbal insults directed towards me after we continued the conversation about me not assessing whether you were fit to work. I advised that the session no longer felt therapeutic or safe. Yes, I wonder why that was. We have to inquire into that. Why you felt it was no longer therapeutic or safe. Well, because you weren't qualified for the job, obviously, even though you reckoned you were, and you didn't feel safe. Well, the video will explain that then. I think you'll find that she felt intimidated. That's what she felt. And then she misconstrued that for feeling safe. Well, you see, if she's been intimidated by a client who's supposed to be licking her feet and kissing her sandals, and someone that just, you know, intellectually ran rings around her and was asking her to give more than she could, well, of course she's going to feel like she's out of her tree and not very safe inside. I confirmed that I would liaise with my MDT colleagues and respond to you with a summary and any further considerations. But you didn't do that. It took 3 months to force you into doing that by my complaint. In summary, I would like to let you know that it was a pleasure to meet you and work alongside you for the past few months, and I wish you the best in your future. I am aware that Dr. Blah Blah Psychiatrist is meeting you soon to also gather an understanding of your current needs and goals. It is unfortunate that the sessions ended in a less helpful way than both hoped for. And I hoped that it had been possible to hold onto some of the positives within the work we completed and gains you reported. Also, again, you know, you reported all these gains, and you know, so I never failed in my position. I saw your strength and courage within the work and could see the resilience you have developed over the years. Now, okay, I hope you continue to find joy and peace within your spirituality and learning. I hope this letter and summary of our work reflects something of what you also experienced and acknowledges the disappointment that you might have felt at points within the therapy, especially at the ending. Yeah. So, there's that letter, ladies and gentlemen. And so the therapy session where she asked me to leave, I'm desirous to have your opinions about that. I'm perfectly assured within my own cognizing ability that there was no reason why she should feel unsafe, maybe fearing her safety in a physical way, but of course I can quite easily see why she felt unsafe speaking with someone with a much higher IQ than her. That must have been very compromising, and it was from the very, very offset. She told me that this had been the only occasion that she had ever had to finish a session early. And I brought to her attention, no, in actual fact, it's the second. Remember, the first session we had, she ended that also because she wasn't comfortable with me filming. I said, it's my right. I said, I haven't looked into this, but intuitively, I know it has to be my right. And not only is it my right, but it's vitally important to sit in a session of an hour and a half speaking about my mental state and my emotional state, that I have this recorded so I can reflect back on it maybe multiple times so I can get it into my head, how I came over, what I said, what you said, did I miss something? I said I'm absolutely aghast how these institutions haven't even off their own back decided that the recording is there if you want it. You don't have to have it, you don't have to opt for it. You can say no, I don't want the sessions recorded, but they most certainly should have the option of the sessions being recorded so they can give you a tape for your protection and for your assessment and your benefit. Everything should be absolutely kept like a police interview. Because now what we've got is we're starting to get hearsay. Now, if it wasn't for the fact that I've got every single session recorded that can prove lots of this stuff is erroneous, well, I'd be the client and she'd be the big therapist, wouldn't she? And of course, when this sort of stuff goes before the board, well, they realise that we're all stupid idiots and we're all confused that go for therapy. There wouldn't be reckoning on addressing someone like myself, and so they all need to be very, very careful about what they say and what they report and what they think they're going to be able to get away with, because they're going to be very, very wrong on all those counts. So I'll leave it here, people. I shall upload the psychiatrist session. I've got another. I've got the first psychiatrist session. I'm going to upload that one to you for you as well. So yeah. So the next couple of videos are in relation to things that happened, and then we'll start in the present.